What's up, everybody? We are back with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for tonight's single game showdown slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Monday Night Football in Week 6, Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, co founder here at Occupy Fantasy, single game $1 million winner. In this video, we will analyze the injuries that impact tonight's slate, which news we should be looking out for throughout the day, talk about low risk lineup construction tips and core plays, and then finish it off with some high risk picks, strategies, and ideas to help you win the biggest prizes that DraftKings and FanDuel have to offer for tonight. Let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. And let's discuss the injuries first. And we'll start on Buffalo's side since they have the most impactful potential injuries on the slate. James Cook is questionable, and Adam Schefter tweeted Friday or Saturday that Cook is expected to play per his agency. That seems like a pretty good source. So, despite just one limited practice this week for James Cook, we do expect him to suit up. Now, if we get a change of plans and he is out, his backups will basically split time. Ty Johnson, he is 5,200 on DraftKings. Ray Davis is 3K on DraftKings. They would become immediate values. Those guys on FanDuel, Ty Johnson is 7,500 and Ray Davis is 7K. So let's keep an eye out on that. We are expecting James Cook to play and have his normal role. But again, if we get news that changes that, we have to be prepared. The more likely person to be out, despite their questionable tag, is Khalil Shakir. So Shakir listed as questionable. Remember, he hurt his ankle a couple of weeks ago, did not play last week, only has gotten in one limited practice since that injury. Generally, that practice participation timeline does not lead someone to play in a game, but we'll see. They are optimistic. They think he could play tonight. And if he's in, we assume he'll have his normal role. Buffalo has been pretty conservative with injuries, at least so far this year, on both sides of the ball. So if he's in, we expect him to have his normal role. However, if he's out, we have some immediate values in the receiving core. If we look at the routes last week when Shakir missed that game in week 5, we have Dalton Kincaid led the group, even though he's a tight end, led the group in routes with 28. Keon Coleman, the rookie, led the group, led the receivers with 26 routes. Curtis Samuel finally saw the bump in playing time that we expected. We talked about that in last week's show. He was up to 24 routes. Curtis Samuel's $2,800. Mac Hollins, 23 routes as continued as an outside receiver. Marquez Valdez-Scantling saw the most routes of his season so far with 14. And then Tyrell Shavers, they called up off the practice squad. He ran 10 routes as well, and he's 1K on DraftKings. So expect a similar rotation tonight if Shakir is out. We'll monitor. We'll know by 4 p.m. Eastern for sure on probably both of these guys, Cook and Shakir, with practice squad elevations. If we see Buffalo call up a wide receiver or two, we'll know that Shakir is probably out. And right now, we have Shakir projected in. And if that's the case, pretty much all of these guys outside of maybe Mac Hollins are going to be under that 20% low owned mark we look for in Showdown on DraftKings, on FanDuel. All of those guys are under 20%. If Shakir is out, that's going to change some things because we'll see Curtis Samuel get bumped up. We'll see Mac Hollins get bumped up. We'll see Marquez Valdez-Scantling get bumped up as well. Right now, we have most of the ownership on Hollins and this group here: Bass, Bills, Zerline, Conklin, Jets. Most of the ownership is here. Now, if that changes and the ownership swaps and moves up on Curtis Samuel, Mac Hollins, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, that means lower ownership on these guys, and we may get lower owned kickers and defenses. So, all this is to say, monitor the news throughout the day. Check back on our model once we have the official news on Shakir, because ownership will change relatively dramatically for this showdown slate if Shakir is indeed out. So let's keep track of that throughout the day. On the defensive side of the ball, Ed Oliver is still out for Buffalo. He is their star defensive tackle that helps the Jets' run game. And then on the Jets side, just one injury to monitor. It's Tyler Conklin. Limited practice all week. He should be good to go. We don't expect anything different. If we get news that he's out, we have Jeremy Ruckert will be the tight end one. He is $1,200. And then Brendan Bates is the minimum price. Again, we do not expect this to happen, but let's just be prepared in case of this rare event. Conklin, expect him to have his normal role despite his questionable tag. All right, now let's talk about low risk contests: 50-50s, double ups, head to heads. Just have to beat half the field to double your money. The core plays that are going to be high owned that you should be using in your lineups. And this will change again if Shakir is out, or it'll solidify one of these strategies if Shakir is indeed out. So you know the strategy by now. Play both quarterbacks, both running backs, any obvious values if it makes sense. Josh Allen, Brees Hall, Aaron Rodgers, and James Cook. 24.50 per player. Generally, that is not enough to have a solid low risk lineup. However, if we get Shakir out, we can play Mac Hollins, we can play Marquez Valdez Scantling, easy. Now, the one guy that you may say, is he actually low risk? And especially if you or any of your friends that have texted you about having Brees Hall in their season-long leagues, you may say, how the hell is he low risk based on his last couple of games? Frustrating usage for sure. The production has not been there. 6.7 points last week, just 3.8 points the week before. I get it. Remember, Ed Oliver is out. Projections really like Brees Hall, but sometimes we do have to take a step back and be like, all right, does this make a lot of sense? I know it's one game, but Brees Hall, is he really deserving of that low risk price tag or low risk ownership? So if that's the case, if you don't believe that, you can take him out. You can build a more balanced lineup with kickers, defenses, and whether it's Conklin, Curtis Samuel, or Mac Hollins. So that is up to you. And I think maybe that's the play on FanDuel, where if we tried to get all four, obviously, we can't do that by now. Cook, Hall, Rogers, 3K per player, we cannot do that. But if we took out Brees Hall at 13.5, now we have 82.50 left with these three core guys, and we can play a kicker or defense. We can play Tyler Conklin, Mike Williams, Mac Hollins, Curtis Samuel. Obviously, they become better values, especially on FanDuel if Khalil Shakir is ruled out. Options. So, and again, all this changes if James Cook is surprisingly ruled out, because then we can play both Brees Hall and whether it's Ty Johnson or Ray Davis, depending on who our model likes or ownership likes. These guys, let's just say it's Ty Johnson. Now we can play a kicker. Very easy low risk slate if James Cook is indeed ruled out. We don't expect it, but again, we know the swap if it does happen. So I think that covers low risk contest. The real question is Brees Hall. Do we trust the ownership? Do we trust his role? And if you say no, I won't be one to argue with you based on recent results. However, look at Bijan, right? Bijan had a frustrating role, and then yesterday put up a couple of touchdowns, 20 plus fantasy points. So very easily could happen for Brees Hall tonight in the Jets. All right, let's transition and let's talk about high risk contests, leagues, satellites, GPPs, the largest contest, the biggest prizes that both sites have to offer. We'll go back to DraftKings. Let's get the water sip in, get hydrated, and we'll talk about some strategies and angles for those contests. All right, now we actually have two underperforming wide receivers, underperforming pass catchers on tonight's slate. If you're a subscriber at OccupyFantasy.com, you know, pretty good day yesterday for the underperforming group. Terry McLaurin, Michael Wilson scored, Cortland Sutton scored. Rashid Shaheed did get there on the punt return, but he scored as well. A couple other guys had nice games for their salary. So great start to the year so far for underperforming wide receivers. Tonight we have Mac Hollins, who has scored 22 fantasy points less than he is expected to have scored based on his opportunity and usage in the Buffalo passing game. Obviously, that is solidified if Khalil Shakir is back tonight. Not great if Shakir is in, but Hollins was seeing air yards and targets even when Shakir was in the lineup. So let's keep that in mind. $2,400, just another reason. He is popular, but another reason to play him as a punt with his underperforming tag. The other one that may be surprising, and the difference in his expected fantasy points and his actual fantasy points isn't that great, but we use a different formula for tight ends, and it's Dalton Kincaid. And we would love for Shakir to be in so Kincaid can stay around that 20% mark in GPPs. He'll go above that, obviously, because the field will need to use some of the Shakir salary elsewhere. Kincaid will get bumped up. But based on his underperforming tag, and tight ends really perform well when they are underperforming on our list, Kincaid fits the bill. Let's look at his game logs. Just one touchdown throughout the year. And you see last week, 6 targets, just 2 catches. And our underperforming model expects him to perform a lot better than he has been. So let's hope that blow up happens tonight on a showdown slate. Wouldn't fault you if you want to captain him or Mac Hollins in your large field GPPs, or even in small field GPPs. Kincaid can get there as well, especially if he hits on that underperforming status. So a couple other angles for both sites. Let's start with DraftKings first. The low owned plays, again, this is going to change if Shakir is out. Right now we have Shakir in for our projected ownership, and if that's the case, if Shakir is in, the 20% numbers, we have Kincaid right around that number. We have Tyler Bass, who will get squeezed even if Shakir is in at 5K, because people can play a little bit less for Bills defense, Zerline, Conklin, and Jets defense. If Shakir is out, he's going to get even lower ownership. Braylon Allen, talked about the Brees Hall disaster so far. Braylon Allen has benefited himself. Obviously, he hasn't been great the last couple of games, but we've seen him put up some points for his price tag. And he's going to be low owned. In fact, because of the values down here, we're going to see extremely low ownership on Braylon Allen and Mike Williams. These two guys especially, because people can pay down a little bit more for some more safety. So these guys, extremely high ceilings for low ownership. And then finally, if Shakir is in, Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman will be right under the 20% mark, probably a little bit lower, MVS as well. And again, this is going to change. If Shakir is out, then we'll see the low owned plays mostly become Mike Williams, Braylon Allen, Tyler Bass, Greg Zuerlein, maybe Bills defense and the Jets defense. So this group here will be the beneficiaries of ownership if Shakir is ruled out. All right, so we have that. As far as captains go, Breece Hall, despite everything I just said, is going to be probably the first or second most popular captain on DraftKings, 20% plus. Josh Allen obviously will be up there with him as well, given his fantasy profile. So these two guys are the easily the most popular captains on the slate. Garrett Wilson not far behind them. So those three are going to soak up a majority of the ownership. So if you feel pretty strongly about the underperforming guys, or you feel strongly about other Jets players or James Cook, great pivots in high-risk contests. Now, Josh Allen, because he has so many pass catchers, I don't mind playing him, and we'll talk about this more in a second on FanDuel. I don't mind playing him with some lower-owned pass catchers, trying to get different variations and get as many cracks at him as the optimal captain if you lock him in. I don't mind that as well. But again, a lot of this is going to change. If Shakir's out and the ownership concentrates on Bills receivers, that strategy becomes at least less appealing, at least to me. Now, on FanDuel, Allen is taking up most of the MVP ownership. 30, 40, I doubt 50%, but 30, 40%. Let's put him in there just for now. And if Shakir is out, again, everyone on that team is under 20% owned at receiver. That becomes an excellent lock Allen and get all the combinations play if you're making multiple lineups. And if Shakir is in or Shakir is out, we'll see some ownership bumps. It's not as dramatic on FanDuel as it will be on DraftKings. So I still think this strategy of locking Allen and rotating receivers is much more viable on FanDuel, even if Shakir is out. But again, if you don't like that, despite our model having Josh Allen number one by a pretty wide margin on tonight's slate for FanDuel, so that is another reason I would prefer locking him over rotating some of the other MVPs on FanDuel. The alternative is going to step down and playing James Cook. Hope he vultures a couple of touchdowns from Josh Allen, playing Garrett Wilson, playing Breece Hall, or Aaron Rodgers. Or you could go psycho behavior like Jack does sometimes. Jack, who you see on the channel, architect of the lineup builder, wins a lot of these FanDuel single game slates. He'll play low-owned receivers, like trashy receivers. And Dalton Kincaid, 1%. Mac Hollins is probably too crazy. I wouldn't put it past Jack to do it. But Kincaid, Shakir if he's in, Lazard, who the model likes. The model really likes Jets receivers tonight. So I wouldn't, if you have a really high risk tolerance and you're 150 max, I would not mind anyone playing Kincaid, Lazard, Coleman if Shakir is out, Garrett Wilson, those guys, just mixing all of the receivers and hoping that they are the highest scorers, whether it's in a low-scoring game or they get multiple touchdowns in a higher-scoring game. So I think that'll do it for this video. The daily plug will be up this afternoon. Again, that'll be updated throughout the day. The news is extremely important today, so monitor whether it's our Discord server or our Twitter or our plug or model, as we will update ownership once we get confirmation or changes of Cook and Shakir's status. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. It is free to do so. Best way to support the channel. Mutually beneficial. You get notified when we go live, and we get more subscribers. Very transparent with you guys. It's so funny. Some people ask, why do you ask people to subscribe every video? If it was up to me, I would never ask. I would just hope you guys do it on your own. But it's very clear that you have to ask people to do things, whether it's on YouTube or marketing in general. If you look at our numbers, I'll give you a peek behind the curtain here. In videos where we do not ask people to subscribe, and you compare that to videos where we explicitly ask people to subscribe, we get 9 times more subscribers on videos where we ask in those that we don't. So if you're already subscribed, just tune out for a couple seconds. If you're not subscribed, go do it. It's free. Click it. Helps everybody out. Don't want to do that, or you do want to do that, and you still want to help out, give us a thumbs up. Helps more than you know. Any questions for tonight's slate, drop a comment below. I will monitor the channel throughout the day. No 1v1 questions. I know a lot of you like to ask those questions, but I can't help you if I don't know the contest, I don't know the rest of your lineup. But any specific questions or general questions about tonight's slate, I will do my best to answer them. Drop a comment below or our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. I linked it at the beginning of the video. It's also linked in the description below. If you have not checked out the tutorial on how to use our lineup builder, how I build showdown lineups using our tools, and just the thought process that I use, I thought it was great, but don't listen to me. A lot of the people who watched that video thought it was extremely informative. It's on our channel. It's linked everywhere. How to build showdown lineups in 2024 on DraftKings and FanDuel. I think if you have an hour or two to go check it out, take some notes, you'll find it that is beneficial as well. It's here on the channel. So, Brian from Occupy, thank you for listening, as always, and good luck on tonight's Jets and Bills showdown slate.